What's up? It's Way Up with Angela Yee, and Stacey Tisdale is here with me today on a Wealth Wednesday with an amazing guest.
We do have an amazing guest. Happy Wealth Wednesdays, everybody. And we're actually kicking off our Entrepreneur Spotlight series. Every Wednesday during Black Business Month, we are going to be celebrating and lifting up iconic entrepreneurs. And who else could you possibly kick that off with except for Courtney Adeleye?
Thank you.
And thank you so much for being here. Courtney is now the founder and CEO of Watch and See Beauty, but you might know her from The Main Choice.
Woo!
Yes.
Which she founded in 2013?
2013.
With $500. Okay, how the heck did that happen?
Oh, $500 in a vision. I'm really big on, grow as you go. I don't think you always have to start big. So when people hear she started with $500, how? And you turned it to $100 million in sales. I don't think you have to start big. I think you should start where you are. And I think you have the ability to scale. So with me, I'm like, okay, give me some bottles, give me a few ingredients, give me a label, and let's get this business cracking.
What made you even decide that this was something you wanted to do? There's always that why I wanted to do it.
Yeah, I'm from Detroit. They like to call it the hair capital.
And is.
So I've always been into hair. My background in science is nursing. But long story short, put a bad color in my hair, and I was forced to start taking care of my hair.
Child, listen. I wanted to dye my hair blonde, and I was like, I'm not doing that again.
I quickly learned
Did you do
that.
it?
I've done it before, but I was like, I don't think I can do that again.
Yeah, I say relaxers and color don't mix, and I think I learned the hard way, or should I say the good way, because it definitely was a segue into this really experimenting with hair.
Before we jump into the business, I want to back up a little bit. Your story is just amazing. You were homeless at some points in your life, and I know you had two sisters. You grew up with a single mother in Detroit. And as I was reading your backstory, I was wondering if starting this hair care business was because you wanted to start a business or you wanted to change your life.
I think sometimes, not all the time, but I think entrepreneurship is something that a lot of people are born with. And I think what it looks like on the outside, sometimes we say, like, look at this person, like, they're doing something else, and they're doing something else, but they're doing something, right?
Right.
So we look at those dream chasers, and we look at sometimes from a negative perspective, but those are the ones who actually change the world with their vision. So for me, it was always something. I felt like, even going into nursing, I've always felt like there was something else that I was meant to do. I felt like it was a stepping stone. But yeah, definitely going through, being homeless, life was purposeful. I didn't think it was fair to just operate on on a self thing. Like I said before, I think we were put here to serve, and I think when you do that every day, everything else just aligns.
Detroit is definitely, I want to say, that's a city that breeds entrepreneurship too, for whatever reason.
Because of the hustlers.
Yeah.
And it's, and we use that term, hustling, but it's the truth. Entrepreneurship is a hustle. Can you get up every day and do the unthinkable? Can you do it without getting paid? Can you hustle your way through it? And I think when we look at Detroit, you have those individuals. Like, life wasn't in your favor. Being a single mom, I was actually known as the best dressed in high school, and I was homeless.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Wow.
So it's like you don't have to show up, what you're going through. So you have to have that purpose. And for me, like, my mom told me not too long ago, she was like, oh, I'm sorry. And I said, well, don't apologize. I said, because I know for a fact I wouldn't be who I am today if I didn't go through those things.
How did that even happen? Because I think I've heard people just look down on that, but there's such extenuating circumstances.
For sure.
And as we all know, that could happen to anyone.
That's right. And the crazy thing is, and I'm glad you said that, because we think of the typical when we think of homelessness. But my mom, knowing that we were from Detroit, she had our girls. She was like, I just don't want you guys living in neighborhoods where you're going to get pregnant. You're going to end up as a statistic. So she always lived above her means. So she was in places that we really couldn't afford. And it was like, okay, the opposite of that is we're like in our car. So what she was trying to do, like I told her, I said, you actually achieved it. I said, because a lot of times, and I hate to sound cliche, people are like, oh, you're from Detroit, you a hustler. Like, what side of town you from? And I'm like, well, shoot, decided Walmart somewhere outside, sleeping in the car, but what she tried to achieve, I told her, I said, you accomplished it. I had the mindset that you wanted me to have. The circumstances wasn't ideal, but that's why I grind every day. That's why I'm trying to make sure that my kids don't go through the same thing.
And sometimes as kids too, we adapt so easily to things.
Oh,
and
for sure.
Did it feel normal to you, or when did you realize that it wasn't?
I'm the youngest out of my sisters, so I think for them, it probably affected them from a negative perspective a lot more than it did for me. As a kid, you happy. Your sisters is right there. Your mom is right there. For
Life
me,
is good.
I was like, I'm good. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And still, I started getting
Still
older.
fun being out
yeah,
there.
exactly. So when I got a little older, it's like, okay, like she's like, well, I would have to go to like the gas station and wash up in the morning before
How many
school.
years were you guys homeless?
I remember at one time it was a 4 year straight.
Wow.
A 4 year straight. And it was like every day, like we would go somewhere, get up in the morning, get our clothes, go in the bathroom, wash up, get ready for school. And that's why I tell people I've been on my own since I was 15 years old. And it wasn't ideal. It wasn't like, oh, she's a bad kid. Like, no, we didn't have stability. But at the same time, I knew I wanted more in life. I knew what she was trying to do. So I never held it against her at all. I'm like, I see what you were trying to do, and I get it.
And you did go to college,
I
right?
did.
Okay,
I
and that's when
did.
you said, okay, what were your goals then when you were going to school?
My goals was, I felt like I kept getting maxed out. Like I would get like nice jobs, before I had a degree. And they're like, okay, Courtney, well, you don't have a degree, so we can't give you more money. And I'm like, well, shoot, that's a problem. Because I'm a hustler. I'm always looking for that next level.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, shoot, if you say I got to go to school, then I got to go to school. Went back, got my, LPN license. And I went back and got my RN license. And I went back and got my bachelor's. And I was on my way to get my master's until this hair care came into play, But, for me, it's if there's another level to hit, then I'm going to hit it.
Yeah. I like that too. I'm all about like when I'm trying to get to a certain place, if there's a certain certification
Yes.
or education,
Yeah.
I
Right.
think we need to be more about that
Yes.
in our lives too. A
Yes.
lot of times people do things and they're not trying to be ambitious enough to take it to the next level.
Right, exactly. You just got to put that time in for sure.
So talk to us about how the main choice started.
Yes, like I said, put a bad color in my hair. Started, and I was known as the girl with like the perfect hair. So I had a relaxer.
By the way, I'm looking at her hair. It's perfect.
It is
See,
perfect.
now
I
just in
mean,
a
I love her.
different
Yeah.
way now. So I had a relaxer. My mom put a relaxer in my hair, and I was 10 years old. So that's the only thing that I knew was like bone straight hair. That's it. So when I put the color in my hair, and my hair started just breaking off, that was my first time going without a relaxer for like some weeks.
Right.
But as my hair started growing in, I'm like, this hair don't look too bad,
Yeah.
Because I've never
don't I
really
just
seen
let
it
my-
before.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, man, what would that look like if I just kind of kept going? So this was like before the whole natural movement. Like I literally just had to lay off of,
Yeah.
chemicals. And it started there. And I'm like, as it started to grow out, I'm like, well, shoot, now I can't get a comb through it. So one thing led to another. Then that's when I just started mixing up products. I felt as if, I went on YouTube and I was using it as a journal. Like, by no means was I trying to use it to like, okay, I want to start a business.
I'm a scientist.
Yeah, like, no, I became a mad scientist. But I'm just like, let me just document it. I'm like, let me just document this as like a visual journey, and I did. And my hair was like here, chin length, and it just started growing like over the years. And people like, wait a minute now, I've been following you for a minute. Like, what are you using? And again, I had no idea that I was going to start a hair care brand, but I was very passionate about the things that I was learning during this journey. I'm mixing this up, and I'm like, wow, this thing worked. I'm like, does anybody else go through this?
And did. And you know how hard it was to find products?
Yes,
Because
very
like you
hard.
said, this was before the whole natural hair movement.
Exactly.
And so when you're going to the store, you're using stuff that's not really
Exactly.
made for us. It could dry
Exactly.
your hair out. It's not really doing nothing. It's,
Yes.
So
Yes.
I just think, because I remember myself being younger and having like this thick curly hair and not having like products
Exactly.
that were good for me to use in my hair.
And that's what my mom said. I was like, well, Mom, she was like, well, if they had products like this when you was growing up, maybe I wouldn't have put a relaxer on your head.
Yeah, so she was seeing it work too.
Exactly. And I'm like, if I could make her believe it, because I remember when I first got started, and she was like, you going natural? And she was just so against
Yeah.
it,
Yeah.
to now she's like natural.
I always wanted to relax it too when I was younger,
Yeah.
and my mom was like, no. I think I
Yeah.
tried to do one, and it didn't really do much to my
Right,
hair either.
right.
They're terrible for your hair. I got one
Yeah.
when I was younger because I was an
Yes.
athlete. and just to keep it. And I was away from my
Yes.
parents, so my mom's like, let me put this in your hair. But I haven't.
And sometimes
terrible
that's
for your
all
hair.
we know. Like when I'm
Yeah.
growing
That's
up,
exactly
I
it.
didn't
That's
think
all
it
everybody
was just
does.
a regular day of life. So
They're like,
me,
soon as
what
it start
people
burning,
did.
you know the
exactly. And it's crazy because I look at my daughters and I'm like, dang, like they don't even know what it is to go through that. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? So yeah.
So when did you realize that this was going to be a real business?
That's a funny question because it took me years to even say, like, you know what? I have a solid business. Like, I just felt like I was creating something and I was trying to like keep up. Like the first year, I did like $183,000 in sales
Sheesh.
online. The year 2, I did like 2.5 million online.
Woo.
Year
This is
3,
just you
this is
grinding
just
from
me
your
at home.
house.
So
Wow.
I'm still not convinced that I have a business yet. I'm just like, I'm keeping up. Year 3, 6.5 million. I'm still at home.
And
What
what's
was
the
this-
staff? Yeah, what was going on?
What
Like,
was
who-
like?
It went
listen
from
to us. We're like,
right.
That's
It went-
fascinating.
It went from me being in like my office to moving into the living room to just into anybody that's coming by like, help me pack these orders, you know. And I'll
What
never
y'all doing? I got some wine. Come
I
help
know.
me pack these orders.
Please. You know, and it really wasn't until like year 3 that I'm like, okay, maybe I know something. You know what I mean? Like I still wouldn't say it. Like I wouldn't say that I know what I'm doing, you know? So yeah, it was like until year 3 when I decided to say, okay, like maybe I should take this thing to retail.
And
I have to
how-
ask, how is all of this affecting your previously homeless family? You were
Yeah.
homeless, and all of a sudden you're making all this money. What was that like for
we
life?
need a whole nother podcast for that conversation. Because it I would definitely say in business, you know, people ask me like, what was your number one issue, you know, during this journey? And it's never the business piece that I'm thinking about. Now, I probably got some issues for sure, but it's always the family dynamics that nobody prepares you for. Being the one in your family
That's the
that
breadwinner.
made it. You know what I
Ooh.
mean? Like
That
what
comes
does-
with a lot.
Oh my gosh. Like comes with a lot that I'm like, a lot of people just don't talk about enough until you get with another entrepreneur. You're like, wait a minute, am I the only one that's going
It's
through this?
not at all. And
It's not fun.
Remember, we're here because you're an icon. And
Right.
It's Black Business Month, and a lot of entrepreneurs feel this. And I think
Yeah.
we're like first generation entrepreneurs trying to
Yes.
create second generation wealth.
Yes.
So what would you say to them? What did you do? How did you manage that?
You know, this time around, like with the new company, I'm trying to move a little different. Like, you know, before I was like, okay, you know, cousin Ray, you know, whoever come on and give you a job, you know. But then when you have to make those hard decisions, like, what do you do now?
Yeah.
You know, and if it was a stranger, you can make that decision a lot quicker. But, you know, I wouldn't say I'm just going to X out, because you do have people in your family who's willing to, you know, put the work in and, you know, understand that this is a generational, you know, type of thing. And I was very fortunate to have some individuals like that. You know, we had some others too as well. But, you know, just even getting started, you know, my husband's a medical doctor, you know, having to retire him and, you know, him being in the business and helping pack, and, you know, a lot of dynamics change.
You're not going to be a doctor anymore.
Right.
You're going to pack boxes.
You know, and exactly. Or, you know, at the time, I traveled so much. So it's like now you have to be mommy. Like, you have to, like, bathe them and you have to, like,
Daddy
help with their
daycare.
hair. Like, so that was a transition nobody warned me about. You know what I mean? So many things changed. Again, you know, we start these things, you know, this is our passion, but everything changes. When one thing changes, everything changes. Your personal relationship, your friends, your family, you know, everything. So
How did you learn how to run a business and even how to budget and just financial?
yeah, you know, I thank God, because I think that's a piece that definitely kind of came with me a little natural. So I am the one, even prior to, you know, the business, people look at as she's about her business. You know what I mean? Like, you know, somebody got something, it's going to be Courtney, you know. But as a nurse, I hustled. You know, I did 200 hours of pay period as a nurse. You know what I mean? 100 hours a week.
Wow.
So I'm not a stranger to hard work. And I think sometimes people look at entrepreneurship as, you know, I want to work for myself so I don't have to work. Well, that's the
It's even
furthest from
harder
the
than
truth it
anything,
is.
yeah.
Exactly. You know, like I said, I put in 100 hours as a nurse. So to do the same thing for my own business, you know, it's just second nature.
But entrepreneurs have to make decisions differently? Because things, you guys got a side hustle or you got a business. And a scaled business is a completely different way of making decisions.
It is.
What kind of tips would you give on that?
I would definitely say, because some people, say, well, you got a side hustle, you have a business. I think ultimately it's still a business. I always also like to say begin with the end in mind. What does that look like in the future when things may change? So even today, when I start something, I'm never looking at it as, this is where it stands right now. I can be mediocre because I'm small. I'm a small Black business, so I can proceed accordingly. That's never been the case. Like, to me, I look at that as a badge of honor. Like, okay, if you know that I'm a Black-owned business, I don't want you to cut me some slack because my shipping is terrible. Like, no, I think we should ship on time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I mentor a lot of people, and sometimes I ask, well, how often do you ship? Well, I ship once a week. Why? You know what I mean? So, again, I try my best to make sure that, I'm operating business the right way.
When did you realize that you wanted to sell? Because that's a conversation too. Like you said, you're thinking about the end game.
Yeah.
But at the same time, people have bought into you as a brand, bought into your story.
Exactly.
And you grew this brand into a $100 million business.
Yes. The crazy thing is, when I went to, I would say, get an evaluation, that was all I was going to do. I was not
getting
trying.
Your business value.
Yeah, to be honest, by me starting this business at home by myself, $500, I'm like, am I even doing it right? I mean, I know I have the sales, like, obviously,
Something's
you know what I
working.
mean? But I'm like, I would love to know, is it even profitable? Like, is it, but now, retrospect, looking back, it's almost like going window shopping. Like, no one goes window shopping. You're going to buy something. So for me, going to these individuals, they look like, oh, she about to sell. But I was only there to see what was the company worth. Like, am I doing it right? So looking back, I'm like, duh. You know what I mean? You go to these guys, that's the first thing they're going to do. But it was an eye-opener, though, because I remember having a conversation with a banker when I first started. And the first thing he asked me was, he said, when are you going to sell? I remember that day, I was so offended that he asked me that. I was like, why would you ask me that? Do I look like I'm about to sell?
Right.
But being in business for so long, that's the epitome of a business.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to, but your business should be positioned that it is sellable. And at the time, because we don't in our community get a chance to be in a position like that. We're wearing a lot of hats. We're the CEO, we're the CFO, we're the marketer, we're all of these things. So to be in a position where the company is profitable, and then at the end of the day, every company has a window. Every company has a window. And unfortunately, what a lot of people don't like to see is sometimes you will miss that window. And they'll say, well, oh, look at this brand. They have been, this is a Black-owned hair care brand. They've been around forever. Look at their evaluation today, though.
Yeah.
They missed their opportunity.
And I see that even now, like
Exactly.
the Sparrows business has gone down
They
so
do.
much.
It's not
People
even
had
worth
an
it.
opportunity to sell, and they didn't sell when it was the
Exactly.
prime time, and then
there's nothing to pass on to their their legacy, unfortunately.
There's also a lot of ownership. And, a lot of people are reluctant to sell. And I know in our community, a lot of people, she sold out. What's she doing? There's a lot of that.
Yeah, it was. I think that was kind of like the hardest part when I did. You actually either had the people that was like, girl, how did you do it? And I'm like, to be honest, that should have been the number one question everybody should have been asking.
That's a scaled
That should have been the number one.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I am an African-American person. I understand that we don't get a chance to scale businesses. I understand that when people see me, they see themselves. So I never got offended when people say, well, why did you sell? Like, I understand why you feel the way that you feel. And I understand that you can't relate because you're not in this particular situation to relate. So I never got offended. If anything, it's like, okay, let me educate you. And I did that for a year straight. Every day I got on, and I did it not because I had to,
Right.
because I felt like, who else is going to do it?
Yeah.
Like, nobody who has a business at this level is going to get on here for free every single day to give you some insight of how.
Yeah, I think that is important to also be able to respond to people, be open and transparent about what the process was like.
Yes.
Because you can't just ignore when people are coming at you. You know, and some people are going to be determined to.
Yeah, they are.
But a lot of people will be like, okay, I get it. I understand it. Because as it's starting to happen more, you know, but I just know that some founders have been like just attacked over selling their businesses, and we should be.
But you know what? It's not even just founders. It's Black female founders.
Yeah.
Because you
Black
can have a
female
man,
founders,
you
you're
can have
right.
an African-American man who do it, and they're going to get dabbed up and say that's a boss move.
Yeah.
But when a Black woman actually do it, then we're nailed to the cross.
The only man I saw really get it was Richie Lou Dennis when he sold Shea
Yeah.
Moisture.
Yeah.
And then, but then he went and bought Essence, and people are like, okay, now I get it.
Right.
Because sometimes you don't know what moves people are making too, because
Exactly.
that's money you're going to invest into something else.
Right.
Yeah,
And
I've seen you say that about Tyler Perry.
Yeah, I was
People
just
were
about to
so
say that.
excited when he bought that Atlanta
Exactly.
facility, or when he built it, but they don't
Exactly.
understand he had just sold something so that he could
Yeah.
build
Exactly.
something
You're
better.
doing something bigger. You know what I mean? To be able to get that kind of capital from a sale to now really impact and do things, it's via acquisition. You know, I remember being at, a big retailer, and a guy came up there. He just launched into retail, and he was up there speaking, and first thing he said was, I'm trying to sell in the next 2 years. Everybody started clapping. And I'm like, there's no way I could say this
you
in
could
front of
not
my
have done
customer.
that.
You know what I mean? Like,
I could never.
and it was just, but it also showed me that there's a lot of educating that needs to be done in the community. So, and this is why I'm saying I'm never offended when someone doesn't understand.
We have trauma.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot
We
of
have
time.
trauma in this community.
we do.
And you
Yeah.
did Curl Fest recently. I saw you and Lisa Price
Yes.
posted a picture together. She bought back Carol's daughter.
Yes.
You had the opportunity to buy your company back as well.
I did. I did. You had to take a go. You know, I'm very particular when it comes to the branding, the positioning, the messaging, where the company is. And if I feel like it's not what it was, then I'm like, do I feel like doing the work to get it back? Or is it better than I just do this thing from scratch? And it hasn't been done before. Like, there's been no Black person to exit at this level and come back in hair care, period, man or woman. So I didn't think it was going to be easy. It's probably a reason why it hasn't been done.
Right.
You know, same thing with Lisa, you know, buying her company back, which, like I said, I had the ability to, but I'm very particular about branding. I'm very particular about my messaging, why I'm here, the community, the person that I'm serving. And if I feel like it's been a little too tainted, then I'm like, no, I'm not interested.
I love that throughout this whole journey, you're so human. Like when people are listening to this, they're like, wow, $100 million, biggest sale, ever. But something happened right before you were selling your company for $100 million that you were like, what do you mean I don't own this? Tell us about that story, the formula.
Oh, yeah.
This was a total boss move. I'm
yeah,
trying to, like,
that is
you know,
true. I was like,
you
wait a minute, so many
know.
things, right? Yeah, so at learning, on owning your formulas, because when you do sell a company, that's what you're selling. You're selling your formulas. And the main choice grew so fast, I didn't even sit down and finish the paperwork type of thing to own my formulas. Like, I knew it was there. I knew I had hit the thresholds, because you have to have a certain threshold before you own it. I knew I've done all of that, but the actual, I think I received the paperwork, but I never signed off on it.
Oh, damn.
I sent it to somebody on my team. I said, sign this and send it back over to where it needs to go, because it didn't have to have my signature, just somebody executive. And I dug back through the emails, and I seen that she never did send it. Her message to me was, you want me to sign it? And I never caught that message.
Wow.
I never caught it. In my head, it was just done.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah, so I had to play hardball, with our manufacturer. They wasn't releasing.
This was when someone was going to actually buy it, and then you
Yeah.
realized,
Like,
I
where's
don't
the
own
Make sure
it.
that you own the
Exactly.
formula, but you
Exactly.
didn't yet.
I didn't. And I went on a strike of ordering to the last minute, and they were like, "You're not ordering." I said, "No, I'm not going to order."
Because the manufacturer said he wasn't going to give it to
Exactly.
you, right?
Exactly.
But what could they do? They would have had to really just.
I played it to like the last minute.
And I know
when-
you made them a lot of money too. I don't like when people do stuff
Oh,
like
yeah.
that. Like,
Exactly. And that's kind of
we
what
did good business.
Yes, I think that was the most frustrating piece. And
Yeah.
like now to this day, we're like best friends. Like the guy who was like over that, I think he probably erased it
Like,
out
why
his
you
memory.
do
But
me
I'm
like
like, I
that?
remember that, But you do. And I think it comes with the headache. Like we mentioned, when we start these businesses, we're not starting businesses. We're doing something that we're passionate about, and it turns into this. Like, we're forced to be a CEO. We're forced to be these things.
Yeah.
Like, I just wanted to create a dope product, get it out there so you can try it. And then the thing starts to scale. And now I'm stuck being something that I probably didn't go to school for, don't have an expertise in. But at the same time, I still think that's one of our superpowers as well, too, though, when it comes to business.
How do we have that script for growth, for hustle, for grinding? What is that next scaling script that you would like the community to learn?
I think the next scaling script is, and this is something I talked about recently, I do think the dynamics of building a company today is different than it was 10 years ago. I think it was easier to become a multi-million-dollar company 10 years ago than it is today. And it's crazy because over these last few years, I've been telling people, I'm like, be careful when we talk about the soft life. I get it. You know what I mean? I hear what you're saying, but I felt like they was about to start making things harder. And I said this years ago, and I think we're there. Right. You're seeing a lot of Black businesses struggle. You're seeing them close. And I'm like, I called this. Yeah. I didn't know what to call it, but I felt it coming. It is strategic now. It is an ecosystem. It is systematic. So that's the difference. Like back in the day, the algorithm, I could post, get 100,000, that's not more today. Like, you better learn how, you have to understand now how to grow a business. And you can learn it, but you have to have a desire to. And I see so many people like, oh my God, let me try to hire somebody to do. No, and I just said this, you're going to have to learn some things right now.
Be right on TikTok shops.
I mean, listen, I was not on there at all. I was like, I'm not about to do another social media platform at all. And I was like, learning this new ecosystem. I'm like, Courtney, that's not even an option no more. Before I hired an agency, I knew nothing about TikTok. Grew it to 6 figures in like 30 days. And this is not the main choice. Courtney's so smart. Like, no, this was Courtney. Let me get in here on the weekend. Let me start researching and actually just start seeing how do you grow. I had no experience. And I don't want to say because it was Courtney that kind of got us there. It was really me sitting down, learning something that I had no idea about.
Gotta get out your comfort zone sometimes.
Gotta get out your comfort zone.
And also grow with the times.
You do. You do when things change. And I think it's so, I was looking at a comment. I rarely read a lot of stuff when people do like interviews and stuff like that because I hate seeing like the drama. But I seen something that went viral. A young lady, I did a makeover and somebody had posted it. And I was like, oh, I didn't know this was like circulating on Facebook. And I'm reading the comments and I'm reading like one of the girls was like, oh, isn't she the one who had a company? Then she started doing something else. Then she started doing something else. And we were talking about the different businesses. And they was like, yeah, that's her. And I'm looking and they was like laughing, going back and forth, right? And I was just like, wow. Like, first of all, I'm not offended by the conversation, but it's like the lack of understanding, like, you too should pivot when it's time to pivot. Like, do we think this is a joke?
Right.
You understand?
Like
So to see that, it was just like, because I feel like the weight sometimes, because I just feel like the average person is not about to put out there what I'm doing. They don't care if you understand or not. They're going to sell a company, get their bread, and they're going to hit Dodge. But I'm just like, it's so many more people out there who do want to learn. And girl, if you need to pivot, you need to pivot. Yeah. You know what I mean? It may not be serving you no more. And it's not a bad thing. And I met this guy. He sold 2 companies for $5 billion each.
Wow.
And I did a transaction with him. And I told him, I said, you know what? I said, we can't cross paths without you giving me some type of mini masterclass, like period, on the spot. And I never forget, this was before I came back into care. He said, you know what? He said, I started a water company. He said, I sold it for $6 billion. He said, I started another water company. He said, and I sold it for $6 billion. He said, and if I came back again and started another company, he said, do you know what that company is going to be? I'm like, water? He said, exactly. So basically, he's like, while you're doing these other things, get back into hair care. Yeah. You know what I mean? He's like, if that's what they know you for, So again, you want to be able to learn as you go. And for me, it's not about selling this company. This will be the legacy company for me. But that first move got me to where I am today.
Right.
And you did that Watch and See Beauty. And it's an amazing, their products are amazing. Of course, this is the second company Courtney created. What would Courtney, Main Choice CEO, tell Courtney? What would Courtney Watch and See Beauty CEO tell Courtney, Main Choice CEO?
I would probably say just say keep doing what you're doing. You know, I think it's the people who actually withstand. You know, when people hear about the struggles or they feel the struggles with the business, that doesn't necessarily mean it's time to fold. That means it's time to learn. Period. You know what I mean? I'm not going to sit here and tell you that every day is peaches and cream. I am putting out a fire, big fires. When I first launched, we launched in Target. Like, that was my first store. Black History Month, intentional. I was intentional about that time. The same week, the DEI rolled back.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, this, you couldn't have planned that worse.
You're like, how am I going to promote them in Target?
You know what I
when
mean? Like,
everybody's boycotting
everything
Target?
had to halt. Like, you know how much money? Like, that was $1 million
Right.
launch. That wasn't coming from funding. That was $1 million launch and $1 million worth of products sitting in there with nobody getting it off the shelves. You know, so you go through things. So what I would say is, just because you're going through something, that doesn't mean it's shut down time. That doesn't mean it's time to not figure it out. That means it's time to get a little uncomfortable with learning some things that you may not know.
Man, that was I know you were like, why is this challenge happening?
People was like inboxing me. I said, listen, I'm reading what you reading. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, we didn't get the news earlier than anybody. And, you know, having a conversation like with, you know, Target CEO, like we didn't get the news early.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You found out just along with a shockingly.
Listen.
So what did you do?
What did I do? You know, I had to put on my relatable hat, I would say. You know, I had 2 sets of people. I had an angry, you know, group of customers who I supported 110%. And I had a group of people that said, I'm still in here. I'm looking for the product. You know, what do I do? And then at that time, you know, like I, you know, told everybody, I'm like, listen, I can't make a decision overnight. Like I'm trying to think this thing through too. Like, what does that look like? You know? And sometimes, I'm not going to say sometimes, all the time, you're not going to please everybody. You know what I mean? Like, you can't. You have to make the best decision.
Yeah, it's easy for somebody not in that position to tell you what you should do.
Easy. And so I always like to come back. With them on social media. I said, well, you're still here on Instagram, and they wrote back the DEI. I said, but you don't have to tell me your reasoning for being on here. I know you have one, just as well as I have one. It may not be what you want to hear. I said, because at the end of the day, Target has bought these products.
Yeah.
I don't own them anymore. I said, do you want me to get a 18-wheeler and go street by street and rally up the process? That's not realistic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's a tough one.
Yeah. So my positioning was to stand firm on, I'm supporting 100%. If you like Courtney, I am not going into the store. I'm not about
you
to
can go online
tell
and
you
get
to.
it here.
I'm not going to do that, because at the end of the day, I am a Black woman. I feel you. I understand exactly where you're coming from. You know, so I would never tell you to do something you're not comfortable with. But it was a challenge. You know what I mean? So when we look at business, you can't call it every day. It's not going to be gravy at all.
But it also shows you how important it is to be diverse and where your placement is too, so that when this isn't here, well, at least the online business is strong, this is strong, this is strong.
Exactly. And the hardest thing you can do right now, like, you know, even what we're doing, like building, you know, e-com, like being heavy, you know, on TikTok, being heavy in retail, you really don't see a lot of beauty brands playing in both areas, because it is difficult.
Yeah.
You know, and it's very strategic, you know, but we're navigating, you know what I mean? I was one of the first Black brands in Walmart who actually went to the general market aisle as 100% ownership as a Black brand.
Okay.
Right? So, and that's not easy to do.
Right.
So it is a lot of things, a lot of history being made. And I don't take it for granted, and I don't do it for accolades. It's just to say that, you know, like, I'm standing in the gap for us, y'all. Because sometimes we don't know who's actually out there rooting for us, making room for us in the future. And I think the worst thing you can do is move on emotion. And I think with our culture, people know that and they play off of that. We move on emotion. Whatever my emotion is right now, I'm going to make that decision. And sometimes that's not necessarily the right decision. You have to think it through. How is this going to impact everybody? What does this look like? Because now in the store in there, you're not going to see a lot of Black brands in there anymore because they lost that shelf space.
Yeah.
But guess what? Guess who's back in there shopping? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right.
So you just gotta be smart. You know what I mean? And you gotta be okay with everybody not being okay with the decisions.
You can't please everyone.
You can't.
You can't. So 2 things before you go. First, you're making all this money and you're giving it away.
Sort of.
Not all of
Not all of it. Not all of it.
You know, this was back in the day, like even me doing like to pay my bill. Like back in the day in Detroit, there was like a radio station. And this guy, he used to pay a bill like every week. And I was just so impressed. But I'll never forget, I was in nursing school. Every Friday, I would listen in and he would pay somebody's bill. And I just thought that was just so dope. And I said, if I ever was in a position that I can do that, I said, I will. And today I have done that. Like I said, I paid hundreds that people know publicly. Then there's some on behind the scenes. But I think the most gratifying when I'm out, like someone came to me the other day, was like, you may not know me, but you paid for like my college tuition and I just graduated.
Sheesh.
You know what I mean? Like I was at like an awards and a guy came up to me and was like, you got my car from out of, being repoed.
Wow.
So I don't know. Like, one thing I do is when I pick a winner, because I pick the winners myself, I pray over it and I say, God, just help me to go to whatever person you want me to go. I mean, it feels overwhelming because I got so many writing in, but I'm like, I'm just going to pick one and God direct my path. And I've been doing that. Some people are like, oh, she's doing it for marketing. I don't do it for marketing.
Listen,
don't you know?
most people
I
don't
have
even-
to pay for that.
It's a Detroit thing too. Skillet Baby was up here. He's been buying houses for people in Detroit, paying tuition,
Yes.
like all of that. Kayla's laughing at my intern because she's like, she told Skillet, she was like, hello, my tuition.
Yeah, I mean, you think about that.
Yeah.
Think about that person who you always wanted help from, right? I think when we get in these positions, like, why not become that person that we always dreamed of?
Yeah, no, that's amazing. That's a
So-
blessing that people are out there that are like, she did this for me.
Yeah, and it's crazy because it'll be in the craziest areas. Like I'm just at an award
Minding my
ceremony, you know what I
business,
mean?
yeah.
It's like wow, because sometimes it's like, am I even impacting by doing like one? You know what I mean?
Right. It is though.
It
If you
is.
can help one person,
Right.
that is a blessing for
Right.
It's a
Right.
great feeling.
So we got you Black Business Month, check. Great way to kick it off. It is also National Philanthropy Month, check. Every day is Parents' Day, and you're making a mini-me.
No, yes.
Your daughter was the youngest CEO to have something in Target. Tell us about that.
Yes. So she is a CEO at heart. She's the youngest one, but it's so crazy now as the middle one starts to get older. She got her CEO hat on, but
Where'd they learn all this from?
Who knows, right? It's funny because my husband, he's like, listen, I'm in medicine. He was like, I'm the opposite. I don't want to run nothing. I don't want to be over nobody,
I'll package up these goods, but
Man, he's just like, I am not going to do what you do. But I definitely think, at the end of the day, our kids, they sold cookies, they sold candy in school. You know what I mean? Like we're not new to this.
Yeah.
So it's like, how about doing this for yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Just imagine, what is that something, like even like now that she's kind of outgrown the bowls, they're both now collaborating on something that may be coming in the future. But they actually see like, I can make something, you know what I mean? I can do something. So I'm always going to still promote them, obviously going to college. Like my son, he's in for software engineering, but I'm like, you too. Like if you want to have your own business, you can, but we're going to finish because otherwise you're not doing nothing at home right now. But you can create something.
What's her business that was in Target?
She had hair bows.
Okay.
So yeah, so
hair
Walmart
bows,
and
okay.
Target, yes, she was the youngest
That is
one.
so cute.
And she designed them herself. Like literally. And she would wake up, I remember she woke up like at 2:00 in the morning and was like, I got an idea. I said, girl, please go back to
You
sleep.
wake up
Like-
with an idea. That's passion.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's divine.
Exactly.
So watch and see beauty. Tell us.
Yes. some people will say, well, how did you guys come up with the name? Some people say, well, can she do it again? Is it possible?
Watch and see.
Exactly.
Notice how I put that together? No.
I gotta know what you slicking your hair down with. Though.
This is our new viral product.
I need
girl.
that. Okay.
You know what? This product came and took over the company. It's so crazy. You can have all intentions on how you want to roll things out. And I added this product on. And this product I was so nervous to do because I'm like, no one really does a product that's designed for a slick back.
I need
you could
that
actually,
for a bun.
Yes. And it's crazy. I can get the craziest idea, and it's always the one that takes off the most. Like, literally, it has taken over the company.
No, I'm telling you, I seen that, and I was like, I need that slick back because first of all, I'm growing my bangs out.
Yes.
So now it's they're at an in-between stage. But
yes.
when I tell you, and your hair looks so perfect.
Thank you.
Like, yeah.
And my thing was, what can I do if I want to get up like this morning and I want to come in and I wanted my hair to look on point? I don't want to do it yesterday.
Yeah.
I don't want to do it like I did my hair this morning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
That
it's
looks
literally
great.
designed for that girl who is doing her hair herself.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I
me.
mean? She want to pull it together. She don't have a lot of time because that's the epitome of myself.
Because look at this. Come on, girl. Like,
Oh, we're going to get you.
Yeah,
We're
get
going
me right. I need some help. But I like it because it don't look crunchy. You know how sometimes stuff could be
Oh,
like,
it's beautiful.
it could be like flaky.
Yes,
and,
it's totally controllable. You can build it, put a little bit, put a lot, and this is locked in for the week. Put a
Okay.
scarf on at night, and
I love it.
that's it.
Where can people buy it?
You can buy this at Walmart, Target, CVS, HEB, Meijer, Amazon, you name it. So we're a little bit of
You
everywhere.
name it.
You name it. I'm excited to be able to do it again. Retail is no joke. It's no joke, and it's not easier that I'm back again. So I'm fortunate and blessed for sure.
Well, clearly you love it, right?
I do.
And we love you. And thank you so much for kicking off Black Business Month with Wealth Wednesdays.
Thank you for having
We
me.
wish you luck. We will be. I don't, why you wanted to do this again? That can be our next interview.
Right.
That could be our
Insanity.
next interview. But thank you so much. And
Thank
happy Wealth
you.
Wednesdays, everybody, and happy Black Business Month.